Maybe you can sit there so that I don't have to. Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiv Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Vinodhi Hari Jiv Ki Jai Jai Nityalila Pravishtum Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Statara Sata Shri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. It's on. It just went off. Something was Haribol, 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 Haribol. Jai Shri Jagannatha Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiv Ki Jai. Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shinitai Gauranga Ki Jai. Jai Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jai Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhara Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Jai Shri Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Jai Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dwara Suvanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai. Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Braj Mandala Shri Gaura Mandala Shri Kshetra Mandala Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim Yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurun dinataranam Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most beloved, worshipable Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pa, Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same Dandavat Pranams and Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable, beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So yesterday we began our preliminary study of the preface of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And we read through that. And that was an astonishing experience. And today we're going to begin to read the introduction, which is a little bit long, but very worthwhile to study this introduction. And so I want to go to the preface again and just make a few comments. One thing that I'm so much appreciating how Srila Prabhupada wrote this preface. Of course, Srila Prabhupada had already been in the West at the time of writing this, because at the end we see that the date is 1971 May. So that means that he was already preaching the Krishna consciousness movement for 6 years, from when he arrived in 1965. And it's true what Prabhupada said here, that very quickly this movement is becoming the most popular movement throughout the world. And of course this is a harbinger for the future, because it will become the most popular movement in the world. I was reading some quotations that devotees posted on Facebook from Srila Prabhupada, very, very relevant quotations. He's talking about world situation and so forth. Communists and capitalists and war, and that was mentioned by him. But especially he was talking about how everyone must take to this Krishna consciousness movement if the world is to be saved. Now, we heard these statements from Srila Prabhupada long, long time ago in our lives, 50 years ago, and we embraced them. And the whole movement of younger generation devotees that were joining year by year, everything increasing, numbers expanding, book distribution beginning to explode. And we held on so tightly to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet that he is the savior of the whole world. He has come to bring Gauranga, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, the Panchatattva, Radha and Krishna to the whole world. He has come to bring the spiritual world to this mundane material world. He has come to give entrance into this spiritual world. No one can even estimate what a world-shaking event this was when Srila Prabhupada came, and when he began to manifest his books more and more, and then he finally manifested the Bhagavad Gita as it is. By the way, I was reviewing a little bit the video from the class last night, and then I realized when I said, I don't know why they didn't print the Bhagavad Gita earlier. Then I suddenly remembered. Contractual agreement with Macmillan prevented them. The printing company, Macmillan, they had a contract, but they couldn't print the full version separately. So we had to wait till 1974 or 75 to get the book that's in your hands right now, that full Bhagavad Gita as it is. Yeah, but it was worth the wait. So, and you know, in this preface, I mean, every sentence here is so carefully thought out by Srila Prabhupada. Mm-hmm. So carefully presented. It's not just off the top of his head. This is a major presentation to capture the attention of the human society all over the world. And indeed, this Bhagavad Gita as it is. I don't know the number of languages, but probably it's more than 100 languages that it's been translated into. Huh? And at the time of Prabhupada's departure in 1977, there were hundreds of millions of books. Not only Bhagavad Gita, but Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hundreds of millions. It was in the hundreds of millions at that time. Major revolution. Major revolution. Not only that, but Srila Prabhupada was producing these books as he was directing full-time an entire international movement, writing hundreds and hundreds of letters every month, probably. Monthly, there was a few hundred letters that he was writing, these little aerograms, lecturing, meeting people, and in the middle of all that, in the middle of the night, when everybody was sleeping, Prabhupada was up with his dictaphone, writing all of these purports, Bhaktivedanta purports. And being older now, when I reread his purports, just like now we're going to reread the introduction, which, by the way, if I remember correctly, this introduction was taken from some lectures that he gave, 5 lectures or something like that, very early on, his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. And that's what the introduction is taken from, his lectures. So Prabhupada is stressing here, second last paragraph, that the Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society, for it offers the highest perfection of life. How this is so is explained fully in the Bhagavad Gita. So now, how can someone tell to another person that you meet that this Krishna consciousness movement, my dear sir, is essential in human society? Oh, it is. This movement is essential. Why is it essential? Because it offers the highest perfection of life. Oh. And how this is so is explained fully in the Bhagavad Gita. So here's this Bhagavad Gita, and I'd like you to examine it, and to read it, and to see what's inside of it. So up to this point, Prabhupada has already clearly explained that Sri Krishna himself has come to this material world, and that only happens once every 8,600,000,000 years that he comes. Prabhupada has presented this truth. He also has talked about how this Bhagavad Gita is eternal, and it was previously spoken millions of years before to the Sun God, millions of years before. So, he is presenting Krishna. You can read the number of times how in one paragraph he's mentioning Krishna again and again and again. When Krishna says, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto, Krishna is absolute. No difference between Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna. Generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, swamis, without perfect knowledge of Krishna, they try to banish or kill Krishna when writing their commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Just see how many times he's mentioned Krishna. Krishna. Who is the father of this Krishna consciousness movement? Krishna. So, after telling all this and telling about Lord Chaitanya and the purpose for presenting this Bhagavad Gita as it is, our only purpose is to present this Bhagavad Gita as it is in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to this planet once in a day of Brahma every 8,600,000,000 years. So this Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society. Unfortunately, mundane wranglers have taken advantage of Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demonic propensities and to mislead people regarding the right understanding of the simple principles of life. Everyone should know how God or Krishna is great, and everyone should know the factual position of the living entities. So, we never heard of Krishna, did we? We never heard of Krishna before. Never heard. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Govinda Jiva Ki Jai Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Sakura. We didn't know about Krishna. We didn't know anything. We never heard anything about Veda, this vast, most exalted philosophical knowledge on the planet. We never heard of it. Actually, there was a very great conspiracy in academia for the last few hundred years. I remember we were discussing this some time back. Literally. Oh, it was with Gaur Sundar Prabhu. Yes. Intentionally trying to cover this knowledge from getting to the human society. The demons, they have come to know about this, But they want to present that Western civilization and civilization on the planet came from the Greek, from the Romans, like this, Egyptian, that's far back as it goes. They've intentionally tried to prevent the world from knowing about the ancient Vedic civilization as being the greatest that has ever been on the Earth's planet. Yes? They did that in academia, especially. And that's why there's all these misleading, presentations of Bhagavad Gita. Because they don't want people to know that Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Well, look, the Vatican, so demonic, what's going on there? So demonic, what's going on? They have tried to prevent the people from knowing about these things. And they try to cast light on one little book, Bible, which can't even be verified. But the most authorized knowledge, which has been accepted and verified for hundreds and thousands of years by the greatest minds and thinkers, philosophers in the whole world, they're covering that from people being able to find out. But Mahaprabhu came to stop this, to break open the flood of Krishna Prem for the whole world. And it's based upon the Bhagavad Gita. Because the Bhagavad Gita is the authority. It's not just another faith, another so-called religion. No. This is the most essential movement in human society, for it offers the highest perfection of life. What is that perfection of life that is being offered in the Bhagavad Gita? It's inconceivable to any other religious thinker, any other religious process. The perfection of the highest perfection of life that is being offered to the human society by the Krishna consciousness movement is unheard of by any other philosophy, religion, or anything that's ever been invented in human society. What is that? That every living entity is actually an eternal servant of Krishna. And they have forgotten their relationship with Krishna since time immemorial, rotating in the species of life, in the samsara chakra of the material world for millions of lifetimes, and even billions of lifetimes. We have no idea how long. They've completely been lost. But Krishna, who's the supreme merciful, absolute truth, supreme Lord, has a relationship with every living entity. He has not forgotten the living entities. He's looking after them. He has expanded himself in the heart of every living being as the supersoul, the witness, the permitter, who is allowing the jivas to play out their fantasy in the material world. But he's making all the arrangements to gradually bring them to him. And that's why he himself comes and appears in this world. That's why he came down from Goloka Vrindavan and he spoke this message for the jivas. This is for every single living entity. It is not a sectarian belief, but that's what they try to make it into, all the demoniac. Even in India and in Hinduism. Oh, you can worship any god. You can worship any demigod, any god. You will get the same result. Bogus, cheating, rascals. So Prabhupada came, and we know that he did not spare any kind of heavy statements. And his rascal word was the chief one. Rascal. Rascal, generally in English language, the rascal word is not a very heavy word, right? That's right. The young rascals, means mischievous. So the pure devotee, he actually has love for all the living entities, even those who are demons, because he's a Mahabhagavat, right? And he just sees that all the living entities are an illusion. So he chose this word. There are a lot of other words. He also used various other words, but this one, especially for the scientists and for those who are trying to mislead the human society, rascals, But demons, Krishna has directly said, asura bhavam ashrita. Krishna himself has told, there will be a very severe reaction for anyone who goes down to the level of asura bhavam ashrita, taking full shelter of asura bhav, of the demoniac nature. Then they have to go down. They have to go down to the lowest species. They have to be in that condition. You know, in the Roy Ramananda Samvad, when Mahaprabhu was asking all these questions to Ramananda Roy at the end of the conversation, and then Mahaprabhu asked, what becomes of those persons who are Mayavadis, impersonalists? And remember what the answer of Ramananda Roy was? They become trees. Long time. Barely the free will is not exercisable in that form. Non-moving species. The consciousness completely stunted. Yeah. So he says, Prabhupada is saying, when he talking about the Krishna consciousness movement being essential in the human society, because it offers the highest perfection of life. So how this is so is fully explained in the Bhagavad Gita. But unfortunately, mundane wranglers, it's another word. Huh? Yeah. Mundane wranglers have taken advantage of Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demoniac propensities and mislead people regarding the right understanding of the simple principles of life. Yes. So, everyone should know how God or Krishna is great. Prabhupada used to say this. Christians, they say God is great. The Muslims say God is great. But how great is he? How great? They don't know. They know nothing about what is beyond this universe. Only they know what's here in this universe. And even that they know very little, very little. So Prabhupada used to say that this Krishna consciousness movement is not just saying God is great, but is fully explaining how great he is. Right? So Prabhupada is saying that everyone should know the factual position of the living entities. That the human society doesn't know. What is the factual position of the living entities? They don't know. People are completely ignorant of who they are and what is the living entities. They don't have any knowledge at all. So, everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant. Eternally. How does Mahaprabhu tell us that? He says, Jiver Swarup Hoy, Krishner Nitya Das. The Jiva, the living being, his Swarup, his eternal form, is Krishner Nitya Das, the eternal servant of Krishna. To realize that, what big thing this is. Christianity has no conception of this. They're only dealing with this body, this life, some kind of afterlife, very vague, extremely vague. They don't even know that they're eternal, actually. That's the very first thing that Krishna instructs in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. You know that? The first instruction. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam atakparam. That's the verse where Krishna is saying, Arjuna, natvevaham jatunasam. There was never a time when I did not exist. And then he says, Natvam neme, nor you, Janadipa, or all these kings here assembled on the battlefield. There was never a time when any of us did not exist. Natvam neme Janadipa, nachaiva na bhavishyama, sarve vayam atakparam. Then he says, and in the future, none of us will ever cease to be. What kind of, where do we hear this? If you go online and you look at so many presentations of this philosophy, this belief, that belief. Where do you find people who are actually telling this so in an authoritative way, not just from their own mind and imagination, but quoting the supreme authority who knows everything? And he's telling us, through speaking to Arjuna, he's informing all of us. You have always existed, and you always will exist. You are eternal. Now you are in this temporary body. The mission of life is to get out of this temporary situation and attain your eternal, spiritual, eternal form, your eternal position, your eternal function, everything. This is the Bhagavad Gita. This is the essence of all the Upanishadic knowledge. It is also called the Gita Upanishad. But whatever philosophical principles are in the Upanishads, Krishna has condensed them into this nectar called Bhagavad Gita. It's for the Kali Yuga, specifically. Because in the Kali Yuga, the people are not qualified. They have very short lives, as we've discussed one day in the class. All of their shortcomings. They cannot study vast Vedic knowledge and so forth. So therefore, Mahabharata, in which Bhagavad Gita is included, written by Vyasadeva, this is for Kali Yuga. This is for the people in Kali Yuga. And it is the only record of the Supreme Absolute Creator, the Supreme Lord from whom everything has come, all living beings. He has actually come down with his lotus feet on this earth planet, and he spoke these words exactly as we have them today. His Sanskrit shlokas that he spoke are exactly the same words as 5,000 years ago. And our Srila Prabhupada, again and again and again in this book, he's saying, when one hears these words of Krishna through the authorized channel of disciplic succession, who are not misinterpreting these words, they're telling directly, he said, it is the same as hearing directly from Krishna. I remember hearing this when I was a newer devotee. And I had a very great liking for the Bhagavad Gita. And I can remember one day in Detroit, going across the street, there was a huge park there, with bordering the lake that's there in Detroit, one of the Great Lakes. It's summertime, and I went across the street with the Bhagavad Gita, and I sat down underneath a tree. And I had a cosmic experience. I was sitting there reading the Universal Form chapter. It was probably the first time that I really consciously was digesting it. And I was completely blown away. So, what Srila Prabhupada, the urgency of his message to present the Bhagavad Gita for all people, you can feel how urgent Prabhupada is telling. He says, everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, then one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. I mean, just in that one sentence, he's told more than anybody on the planet practically knows. You know? Here's the solution to all problems. All problems. The problem of birth and death. The problem of being under the control of the material nature, life after life after life. Being forced to wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. He's saying, unless one serves Krishna, unless one knows, everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the modes of material nature. Cannot be more clear. It doesn't take a very great intellect, actually, to hear such knowledge with a simple heart, with faith, and then to accept it. Yes, I'm eternal. I've been under this illusion for many, many births, many lifetimes. If this knowledge was not given by Krishna, and the Vedic knowledge was not given, we would never know what is going on, why we are here. So, this is why Sanatana Goswami, he asked those questions to Mahaprabhu before Mahaprabhu gave him the Siksha for 2 whole months. But his first questions were, who am I? Who am I? And why am I suffering all the time from these threefold miseries? If I don't know the answer to these questions, how will it be possible for me to truly benefit myself? Those are his 3 questions. Because if you don't know who you are, then you're just simply identifying with a temporary body, temporary identities, and you're acting for that. That's all. But if you know who you are, and that you are actually the eternal servant of Sri Krishna, oh, now you can begin your real life. You can begin the real life of service to Krishna. So everyone in this Krishna consciousness movement who has embraced this knowledge in their life and are trying to practice, trying to follow, they are very fortunate. They're very fortunate, and no one should waste their time. Once one receives this knowledge, then one has to act. And if one becomes again pulled away by the modes of material nature, then they should try to again come back, because there is no other way. There is no other way, no other knowledge, no other movement, no other God, no other anything except for Krishna. He is the absolute truth. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying in his last paragraph, I wanted to go over this because it's just too rich. Yes. He says, people in general, especially in this age of Kali, they are enamored by the external energy of Krishna. And they wrongly think that by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. That's wrong. That's wrong. It's a mistake. It's very wrong. But that's what everybody's thinking, especially in this age of Kali Yuga. By advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. And we see now how far the technology has come. But that cannot change anything. Just because more gadgets are there, mimicking mystic powers of communication and this and that. But it's all artificial. It's not real. It's not real, it's temporary. But it can be used to serve the Lord. That's why we're using these gadgets to broadcast the message, to discuss Krishna Katha, all of that. Prabhupada was leading the way in engaging everything in the service of Krishna. But the basis of it is that those material comfort, that will not make us happy. So she's saying here that in the age of Kali, these people, they have no knowledge. They have no knowledge that the material or the external nature is very, very strong. And why don't they have this knowledge? Because everyone is strongly bound by these stringent laws of material nature. Prabhupada again and again is mentioning the stringent laws of material nature. Why is he mentioning that? because people don't know that they're under these stringent laws of material nature and they are forced to take birth and die and go through the cycle of birth and death again and again and again. This is a major thing to understand in human life, that I am controlled by the stringent laws of nature, and I am drowning in this karmic reactions, life after life after life. This is not a pleasant thing. This has to be stopped. So, a living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. Very simple. He's happily part and parcel of the Lord. I'm winding it up now. Because that's the happy position of a living entity. If a living entity receives this knowledge that I am part and parcel of Krishna, I belong to him, I'm his energy, I'm eternal, he's eternal, I have a relationship with him, now I have to revive that relationship with him. This is all the cause of real happiness. That's why Prabhupada is saying, the people in Kali Yuga, they don't know that advancement of material comforts will make every man happy. No. Only if they realize that, he says, by the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. And instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The highest perfection of life for everyone is to serve the senses of the Lord. The Lord wants this, and he demands this. That's a really good sentence. He wants this, and he demands this. One has to understand this central point of Bhagavad Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world this central point. And because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And even if one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. Just imagine. There are so many devotees all over the world now that have come from reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, become devotees. Even our Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj, he got the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated into the Oriyan language, read it, and became a devotee. You know, and this story is multiplied. How many? Hundreds of thousands of people.
My mom happened like that.
Oh yeah, Bhagavad Gita. That's She got it. Where did she get the Gita from? On the streets or?
One of her friends. She was helping her friend move.
Yeah.
Teresa, no? Mm-hmm. She was helping her friend move, but her friend didn't have a car, so her friend was moving. My mom was using her friend was using my mom's car, so she was helping her, right? And then she forgot. Her name was Teresa. And she forgot her books with the Bhagavad Gita on my mom's car. And then she forgot the Bhagavad Gita on my mom's car. And then my mom just saw it right there in the back. ¿Dónde lo viste? ¿Dónde dejó el Bhagavad Gita?
En el carro.
Just in the car, just left it in the car. Then my mom grabbed it and
ci dije, wow, qué... Y la puse en el librero.
She just put it up. She took it and she's like, oh, I'm gonna return it later, and she just put it on her books.
But luego.
Then after.
Okay.
She took it.
Curious.
Wow.
She read it.
Speak the soul. Habla del alma.
She was amazed that he was talking about the soul. She was searching.
Yeah.
Wow.
She read it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, me too. It was my first book.
Yeah.
And I started to read that book that I got at the Rock Festival, you know. And I started to preach it. On the way back, we were hitchhiking all the way back from the East Coast back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And all the people, I was preaching to them all along the way. Yeah. From what I was reading. And I was actually understanding, because this thing about the soul being eternal, that was major for me. Major. Because I had been a Christian, I had been taught the whole biblical thing, and there was no information about the eternal nature of the soul, and the soul being consciousness, right? And consciousness is eternal. There was no information. My whole childhood, from the age of 5 till the age of 14, I was in a Christian school, reading the Bible every year, right? And no information about the soul. And I remember asking my teacher one time, they were religious teachers also, and I said, can you tell me what the soul is? And I was curious, what is the soul? We have a soul. They're always talking about it, that you have a soul. Your soul can go to heaven, your soul can go to hell, like this. So I asked him, what is the soul? Thinking that maybe he can explain it to me, like, where is it? Where is it? And you know what he said? He said, well, the soul is something that God gave to us to bring us to Him after we die. So vague. Didn't answer my question. But when I heard from the devotee, it was Sri Govinda Prabhu at the Rock Festival, when I sat and spoke with him for the first, it wasn't the first time I met the devotees, a few times, but this is the first time I sat with them seriously to hear the knowledge. And he gave me an overview of the Bhagavad Gita. I had never heard of karma. I had never heard of that we're eternal consciousness. Consciousness cannot be destroyed. And it was like light bulbs were going on in my brain. Of course, that's true. I'm not this body. I'd never heard that. You're not this body. You know? So, I mean, by the experience that we all had, waking up and realizing, what amazing knowledge. Just like Charu Chandrika is telling, waking up, this is so amazing. That's what Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is, to wake up the conditioned souls. Yeah. So that's what I'll tell for tonight. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to call out to everyone, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. Wake up, sleeping souls. Gaur Premanande. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Gaur Arti ki jai. Radha Krishna Jugal Arti ki jai.